Welcome everybody. Come on in. Expecting a decent crowd today with everything that is happening in our world. I'm hoping for one because I want this to be a nice, hopefully interactive conversation here. So give us a minute. If you would tell us, it's always fun for us to know where you're at in the country or in the world. I know we got some folks overseas as well. So let me know where you are a school counselor, and Anne Marie know. It's always fun. If you wouldn't mind, put that in the chat. Also, if you have a strong opinion, I've been battling today. If I go, this, or if I do one extra button, I don't wear button downs much anymore. So if anybody feels very strongly, um, that's probably gonna, that's probably gonna just sway me in that direction. So yeah, let me know where you're from. Hola, from California. Good morning. Um, Okay. Yeah, and again, awful lot to talk about, and I think each week will kind of pick up momentum here. Um, and I kind of thought maybe after this FAFSA fiasco, a few, well, a couple of years ago, and two last year, not as much, but this whole FAFSA change ended up being a giant cluster. You know what? Um, and so I thought we would kind of like settle down here. I'm going on record here to these changes that are being talked about and some of these dominoes that are falling already. There's Matthew Carpenter once again. Hi, Matthew. It's all right. It's your bi-weekly pop-in, Anne Marie. That's okay. You can say hi. That's Anne Marie, our let me get the job title right here, our manager of high school partnerships. Um, So anyways, I think these changes, and again, we're seeing some dominoes are going to be more impactful than what we saw with this FAFSA fiasco. I'm really curious to get your feedback. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about college specifically. How are these, the talk of disbanding the department or terminating the Department of Education and everything else around higher ed going to impact our ecosystem, what we do. Um, but I'm curious to just again any feedback you all have, any feelings that are coming up. Again, I just have a periphery understanding of what's happening more in the K through 12 world and some of the things ways you guys are being impacted. But I want to try to bring some clarity in terms of families that are worried about this college piece. What can you be sharing with them? Again, we're kind of doubling down on our education. We're just taking this on as a challenge to say, okay, our, stakeholders, right? So that's families, getting ready to go to college, students and parents and school counselors. They kind of need us now more than ever is our expectation of that. So we're doing our best to level up here and, just kind of taking this challenge very seriously. So I'll start meta and then I'll get down to the nitty gritty, but please pop any thoughts, feelings, whatever into the chat. Actually, before I do that, and I'll show this at the end as well. I see a ton of our partners are on here already. By the way, should probably share my name for those of you that are new. I'm Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders at College Aid Pro. I'm going to share this link. I'll put it in the chat right now. If you don't partner with us already, at least check us out, see what we're all about, and I would specifically recommend you meet with. You just got to see Anne Marie quickly. Meet with Anne Marie Sanderson. That's our director of high school partnerships. We work with over 5,000 high schools across the country and largely just providing financial aid, scholarship resources for your office as school counselors, right? Just kind of being a backstop. We like to think of ourselves as an extension of your office. We have a dedicated email, which we're very responsive of. Challenge us on that, please. We just help with particular case studies. I had a couple counselors I talked to this week going through particular unique appeal situations. I want to help you guys there, and then of course for your families and parents. So this I think is pretty helpful. We do a financial aid curriculum for all grade levels, right? And again, you just have to share this once for families, and when they sign up, they get kind of placed into that structure. If they're an underclassman, they'll go into the appropriate every Tuesday. of the month, we have a East Coast and West Coast presentation. Every other Monday, we do live office hours, so families can just show up with their questions, and we have multiple experts just there to answer them. This is all free, right? This is all free. The office hours is not free unless you work with unless you're a high school partner. So any of the students and families in your high school get that for free. The seniors, right? Obviously, right now we're talking about appeals and private scholarships, and pretty soon be talking about loans, which is we're going to talk about today because it's going to be more important than ever. Um, so you can share that with families or whatever. Check it out yourself. We recently did a podcast or started a podcast. That's where we get to swear on that, so it's kind of fun. Be a little bit more real than we do in these a little bit more professional settings here. And then we have a technology, right? We call it the Naviance Score, Maya Learning, School Links, whatever you use, Zello. We have a technology and we have a partnership with all those guys I just mentioned, but specifically on financial aid and scholarships. And again, you guys already signed up for Coffee Talk, so check us out. I'll revisit that at the end, but I would argue it's more important than ever now to have just additional support for your families, and or you all as school counselors. So again, I want to hear your thoughts specifically as it pertains to college. What are some of the questions you're getting? What are you thinking? What's your interpretation? And I'm specifically talking about this dear colleague letter that got sent out last Friday, a little Valentine's Day love letter. If you don't have that, or if you haven't seen that, I'm popping it in the chat. But I'll kind of break it down for you. And this is again just kind of very much related and hand in hand with a lot of the changes that we're seeing with this new administration, very much related to the termination of the Department of Education, or at least the intention to do so, intertwined here. But ultimately, I care less about all those things. I care more about how's this actually going to play out for colleges, for students, for families, and again, this whole ecosystem. And again, I'll start very broad and then get specific, but I will tell you I am cautiously optimistic. Okay. And the reason for that is because if we looked at our system right now, it wasn't working for too many people, right? $1.8 trillion in debt. The college inflation costs continue to wildly outpace, standard inflation. College is $100,000 a year now. No matter who you are, it's probably I don't, and I touch a lot of people in this space. I don't want. I don't run into anyone that's like, this works great. What's the problem? What are people talking about? What's the big deal here? So I like a kind of massive change being introduced. I like this, like, hold on a second. This is freaking crazy. We're going to pause and take a really close look at what's going on here. This is nuts. I like that. I've been waiting for some institution with massive influence. It's what we've been trying to do forever, right? But nobody knows that we exist, right? I've been waiting for some institution with meaningful influence to call a big time out on this whole thing and take a really close look and say what's going on. And I will get to a roundabout way of this, but I believe what's happening right now and the dominoes that I'm seeing, and some of this is, we got to look into our magic ball here, or crystal ball rather, and make some educated guesses. If a lot of these things play out the way that they appear they're going to play out, it's going to bring college prices down. And I'll get to the why. Here's what I really don't like. Here's what I hate. I hate how it's packaged. I hate the messaging. I wish it was presented like, hey, look at everybody that's concerned with college in this country and has kids in college or is in college or is getting ready to send kids to college or attend college. This is freaking crazy. What the hell is going on? We want to do everything we can to make this more affordable for everybody. And, so we're going to pause some things and take a closer look and try to implement some solutions that we think are going to make, again, college more accessible, affordable, for everybody, right? And I don't think there would be a ton of resistance to that, as opposed to, again, and this is some of my own color and emotion, and interpretation going into some of the messaging and the packaging here is just like, it's so fear-based. It's immediately making people think, I know, firsthand having some conversations like, oh my goodness, am I going to get left behind? Are these scholarships that I'm receiving now going to get pulled out from underneath me, or these ones that I thought I might have a chance of, or are they going to not exist anymore? Is my story that I'm pretty proud of now going to be irrelevant, right? And I think a lot of people that are seeing the messaging, that's kind of how they felt, right? And it's very hard to cut through. Well, how am I gonna? What are the wins gonna look like here, right? For a lot of people. So, again, the technical fallout of what I anticipate happening, a lot of it's gonna be good, I think, right? But how it's packaged, I just is so again just I just completely disagree with, right? And I think it scares the shit out of people, quite frankly, and does the opposite of what I hope is the intended effect. That said, I'm not naive, and I am worried about certain groups of people and certain individuals, and I think we're already seeing some negative dominoes start to fall. I talked about this 2 weeks ago, but I'm most worried, or some of my biggest concerns is that these employees that are going to be laid off or have already been laid off or have, kind of gotten their little mini golden parachute and left voluntarily. A lot of these folks are the bodies or the individuals that are kind of enforcing or policing or making sure that certain Title IV requirements, right? And those are the requirements that colleges have to satisfy in order to get federal funding. And if you want to keep your lights on, right, you have to get federal funding here. I'm worried that without any oversight there, some colleges might not prioritize it the way they would if they are again are going to be held accountable, right? So what do I mean? Specifically students with IEPs, and I know that's it's not IEPs in college, but any students with disabilities, right? Yeah, you have to have the bare minimum as a college, and there's a spectrum in order to get a Title IV funding. And again, there is a spectrum. Some colleges are, Curry College in my backyard here, just south of Boston, is very comprehensive. They have a whole building, or maybe even buildings at this point, dedicated to students with a whole spectrum of disabilities. And again, not just physical, but dyslexia and everything in between, right? And very, very hands-on type of deal. And then again, plenty others that are the opposite end of that spectrum, but they're still a bare minimum. There are still services. There are still full-time employees that are there to make sure that students that fall anywhere on the spectrum have some level of support. Okay. And there's an investment in that, right? At every college. And hopefully part of that is just because it's what they want to do and it's what they believe in, right? But a part of it, there's a financial incentive to do this because it's what we have to do it in order to get federal funding. Are colleges going to continue to invest resources in programs like that if they don't have to in order to get federal funding? I'm nervous about that, right? You have to have net price calculators on your college website, right? To hopefully, now, as you guys know, we talk about all the time. In general, college net price calculators stink, so maybe this is just a good thing if they go away altogether. But if they're going to get even worse, that's scary, right? And the idea is that families can have some visibility into what colleges might actually cost them, ideally before they even go to our campus, right? Certainly before they apply, certainly before they accept that offer. But again, this was a requirement as of 2008. Now there hasn't really been any oversight here anyway, so I don't know what less oversight means, but that's something else that I see being kind of a trickle down effect. Um, so so again, I welcome a change because I don't know if I don't think any of you on this call, and I'd love to hear from it, and I'll be open-minded. If you're like, no, look at our if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I am welcoming a monkey wrench here. But again, some of the things I have major concerns with, and look, it's not going to be perfect, right? If we're going to go in and break some things are going to get broken, or get worse, etc. Yeah, so I'll tell you why I think there's some good change coming. Okay, and I want to hear why specifically what you don't like outside of some of the things that I'm talking about here. Now, there's some and let me dispel some of the, I think, concern and myths that I'm less concerned about, right? But I'm hearing that out there that in any way this is going to negatively impact need-based financial aid. Okay. Um, Pell Grants are we have no reason to believe they're going to change, go down, etc. Colleges are not doing anything to change how they award need-based financial aid, and I've talked with a ton of them from all different walks of life. It's even if like every single thing they want to push through goes through, nothing's going to change with need-based financial aid outside of loans. I'm going to put a pin in that because there's a lot to talk about there. Um, Scholarships. Okay, this was an immediate concern of mine specifically, especially those that are tied to ethnicity or or race, anything that right now, right, a meaningful amount of colleges are have scholarships, right, for those individuals, right, for students that fall into these types of categories. So an immediate concern of mine was, well, are these going to go away? So now if there's a particular um scholarship for a particular race at a particular college, are those going to disappear? That was my immediate fear because as I read that Dear Colleague letter, I'm like, these are all going away. So I talked to a bunch of different colleges. That was kind of my first and biggest concern. They said a lot of these that I talked to already had workarounds with this before even the 2023 ruling of Harvard versus, the Supreme Court versus Harvard in terms of admissions, race could no longer be a factor, variable in admissions, right? Even before then, a lot of colleges had workarounds in anticipation of that ruling, and they still, since that ruling, right, more colleges have done that. And basically, what they do is something called scholarship matching, which basically means that, okay, first, a student has to have some metric that is merit based. It's a minimum GPA and or test score or whatever. And anybody that has it goes into that pool, becomes, eligible for that first hurdle. Right. And then from there, they can get more specific and specifically say, okay, this one is for African Americans or Asian Americans or, whatever it happens to be that they want to give financial incentives for at that particular college. So I was really worried with this, talked to a bunch of different colleges, and they kind of said, we're not worried about this at all. Of course, nothing's guaranteed here, and there's some scary language, but they're all saying they're not going to go. They're already feel confident that they are satisfying the language of, appeasing our current administration, but also being able to satisfy what they're trying to do in terms of giving money to who they want to give money to. So here's what I think are going to be some of the biggest material changes, and some of these are already happening. And this is again where there's some good news, bad news here, I think. Plus loans, this is the federal government program for parents that are borrowing for college. You know what? Before I go there, let me start with student loans. So I said need-based financial aid was not going to be impacted outside of loans. Everybody's going to get the recording, guys, today, as always. So if you missed the beginning, you will get the recording, if not later today, tomorrow. So the federal direct student loans, right, that everybody that completes a FAFSA is entitled to utilize, right, up to $27,000 over the course of 4 years of college, 5,500 freshman year, 6,500 sophomore year, 7,500 junior and senior year, right? $27,000 everybody can use. Families that are below a certain threshold, okay, get a percentage of that subsidized, meaning it does not accrue any interest while the students are in college. That's very likely going away, the subsidized portion. So that stinks, right? Um, there's no way to sugarcoat that, or at least I don't have a way to sugarcoat that yet. I don't see that angle. So that stinks. There is a world in which, and my personal prediction is this won't happen this year and probably not even next year, but there is a world in which the federal direct student loan program goes away altogether. And it goes back to what this used to be, which it was just the private the private market, okay, took care of all student loans and all parent loans, all college loans, and they were backed by the federal government, right? This is kind of the direction that it looks like they're going in. The former Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, if you saw her op-ed after this announcement, she is a firm supporter of that. Again, I like a little of it. Most of it I disagree with, and I'll talk about what I do like. I don't like any of getting rid of the federal direct student loan. I think that's just a loss for too many families. And again, there's no way to sugarcoat it. But what's more interesting to me is this concept of the plus loan. That's a federal government program for parents that are borrowing for college, right? Um, and if you've done any kind of like market research or read some of the books around how did college get so freaking expensive, just about all the evidence, and is very compelling, points to plus loans, right, as being maybe the biggest culprit. And of course, it's not that simple. There's a million, like most complicated, nuanced problems. There's a million things that that contributes towards college being as out of control as it's become. But again, the plus loan is certainly on the short list. So there is talk of this loan being reduced, the amount that you can borrow, because right now there is no amount. You can borrow $100,000 a year for all 4 years. Okay. So there's talk of it being reduced. There's talk of it going away, and I can all but guarantee you it's going to be harder to qualify for. Okay. Now here's where the good news, bad news comes in. For many families, and you all probably know this, the plus loan is the easiest one to qualify for. So quite frankly, for many families, it may be their only option in terms of borrowing money to send their kids to college. But this is a predatory loan. Okay. You do not need to have a good credit score at all to take advantage of this. You don't need to have any income. You can have zero income. You can not work and you qualify for this. And again, it doesn't change the max. So you can borrow $100,000 a year to send your kids to Columbia, right? For 4 years. You can borrow $400,000 with zero income and not a very good credit score, right? So what that does is it tells all these colleges, right? And again, I've had a lot of these conversations off the record too, that no matter what, we can just charge more and more each year, because no matter what, the federal government is going to give everybody that can't pay for it. And I'm oversimplifying a little bit because not 100% of people qualify for the plus loan, but everybody's just going to get the federal money via the plus loan. We're going to continue to get paid as an institution, and around we go. And also, as probably most of you know, that student loans, parent loans, any educational loans is the only loan that cannot is not eligible to go into bankruptcy, right? So it's just pretty stinking complicated. And again, I my colleague Peg, if you guys have ever heard Peg, her words, I'm stealing her words, is that she just says full on they're predatory loans. And it's hard to disagree, because again, there's so many compelling reasons and case studies, et cetera, of why that is the case. Now, again, the counter to that, and this is where I really struggle, is like, well, but for some families, that's their only option, right? And Peg's even in should I'll be meeting with her right after this, and we have healthy conversations around this all the time. She's a little harsher than me in that she'll say, "Who cares? They should go to a school where they don't have to borrow, or don't have to borrow that much, or there's, take a kind of different path there." And of course, she doesn't say who cares. She is I'm not trying to be disparaging here, but you get my point. But so this is where it gets really complex, okay? But it also is where I see this math all going relating to college prices. Or if it all plays out this way, and of course there's tons of unknowns, right? We're making a lot of crystal ball predictions here. College prices are going to come down, okay? Because now if and when these parents are not able to get a plus loan, okay, and they have to go to the private market, but they don't have very good credit, it's going to be 18%, 20%, maybe higher, okay? And I think a rate like that is really going to get parents to say, this is too much. This is crazy, right? And I know this is the top choice of my kid, and it kills us, right? Because believe me, I am not discounting some of the pain that this is going to cause, right? These types of scenarios and conversations, and you guys are a fly on the wall for these every single spring, right? Or every single year. Um, but when it's kind of like, if the plus loan's 9%, screw it, let's do it, right? And as you all know, oftentimes that doesn't set themselves up for great outcomes. But what's going to happen if they only can choose the private sector, they're going to hopefully, in a lot of cases, say we're not borrowing at 20%, or they're not going to. It's harder to qualify for private student loans, so more people are going to get denied. Now, obviously, that is not what anybody's hoping for, but it's going to force them to go to choose a college path that's going to be more affordable, right? It's not going to just be like, I'll just sign this loan and it'll take care of itself and I'll deal with that, in 4.5 years. So if there's not this unlimited resource that's getting funneled into the colleges every single year, the federal government, it is going to force um, them to bring down their prices because more families are just going to say we're not doing it, And yes, can certain families pay? Of course, but we're just going to get more of this. It's just kind of a natural, macroeconomic outcome here. Just in the same way that when plus loans were instituted, the data is so compelling, and the straight line of college costs exploding it's you don't have to look too hard to see it. So look at any massive change, disruption, etc. There's going to be some pain, no doubt about it. But I, if A equals B equals C here, I think you could see college prices coming down as a result of some of this stuff, in the not too distant future here. I am very nervous about the private sector being one of the only players in town. The again optimistic viewpoint there is competition wins and all these banks compete with one another, and consumers, right, get the best rate, right, may the best rate win. Okay, here's a problem. There's about half dozen banks in the private sector that do, and they're called all different things, but at the end of the day you can trace them back to um a half dozen banks, right? But and if they decide to, collude with one another and do some handshake agreements and say, wink, wink, how about the lowest rate we give everybody is 10%? That's my fear. And I don't think it's a naive fear. Whereas having the plus loan in there, that can be kind of an anchor where no private loans want to get too far above that. Right now, again, there's still state options. Okay, state options aren't going away, and so that is kind of a decent segue to where well, let me make one other point too. Um, because I want to segue with like, what do we do with this information, right? What are our action items? What's actionable here? What do we coach? What should parents be doing? What should school counselors be doing? Etc. Now, a part of this that I don't hate again is this kind of pause to take a closer look to see like, okay, what's really going on here at some of these different players in the space, right? And something that again, I'm going to be curious to see how this plays out is these, we have a lot of school counselors will hear about us, will see our presentations, will meet our experts, hear from parents that have worked with us, and they'll be like, I'd love to have you guys work with our school and support our school and take advantage of all your free resources and blah blah, but you're for profit and we can only work with, I live in Massachusetts here, right? We can only work with MIFA. They're the nonprofit. Now, and that is again, and I don't blame school counselors for not, um, kind of dying on that hill. But if we unpack any of these nonprofit state organizations, right, that's what's going to be interesting to come out what they find here because Massachusetts, MIFA, if you go down the rabbit hole of MIFA, you're going to find that they're a nonprofit. They're a nonprofit arm of Fidelity, and Fidelity is very powerful, and they have very strong, influential lobbyists. And that was kind of and they kind of have so much influence in Massachusetts, and now it's a great marketing thing for them, where they're in every high school as a nonprofit. But it's a great business model for them because for families that are able to save, they advertise their 529s. For those that have to borrow, they advertise their MIFA loans. New Jersey has HESA, right? If you trace them down, it's Franklin Templeton is that bank, and I could go state by state, right? But there's gonna be, I think, more education and illumination, and all we want And we and all I hope that school counselors want is like, look, we just want the best solutions for our parents, and here's a bunch of different options. And whether and we just want to give them again kind of the best option. So I'm excited to see if some of that stuff comes out, to see if they're like, well, wait a minute, these nonprofit organizations are that's I'm really interested about that. Now that I'm not also not trying to be disparaging of MIFA. I know a ton of their presenters. I've shared the stage with them before. I know some of them personally. They're usually local financial aid officers, great people, right? And again, we always laugh, they're always laughing about, yeah, we're nonprofit as we're passing out all our pamphlets for 529s and loans, et cetera. And guess what? And we don't hide behind that. We're at the end of the day, people that want to work with us beyond our free resources, right? That's an option. We don't hide behind that. Okay, so that's just another point that again I'm very curious to see how that kind of unfolds here. Okay, and again, Karen, I hope you share what kind of your biggest pain points around some of these some of these changes are. Do you think anything's going to be positive here? And again, too, TBD, and let's be clear. And again, we always got to walk a fine line here, but like, and hopefully it came through. I'm not a huge fan of how this stuff was packaged, and I hate the fear mongering, and I hate the fact that it comes across that those need the most help um, are going to be the first to be left behind, and we don't care, right? I think that's the attitude a lot of the administration. Um, so don't get me wrong, I'm not okay with a ton of that stuff. But I do think there can be some positive changes. And again, the system's broken right now. So that's I've never heard anybody say otherwise, right? And again, I would love to hear that argument of like, what am I missing? If somebody says, no, no, there's nothing to change here. So what does all this mean? What can we do? How should we be talking, educating our parents? That's the word, education. You all are doing it. You have to continue to pay attention because things are happening. Like, they made the announcement last week that the SAVE program was going away, which is a type of forgiveness program for federal direct student loans and parent loans and sorry, for repayment program, right? But they made that announcement or I forget if it was earlier this week or last week, but they actually made this change a month ago, right? Very, very quietly. So again, we are being watchdogs, paying attention to everything here, and trying to touch everyone in our network at least every day, right? Policymakers, lobbyists, college admissions, financial aid folks, everybody in the space, all sides of the desk, we're trying to talk to every day. So continue to pay attention to us. Encourage parents to continue to pay attention to us, right? If you're not already signed up for our give me a second. If you don't share our um, curriculum with your parents, I recommend that you do. And let me see. And here's another. This is a very nice resource here. Let me share this. This is just our kind of a free resource library that I think is pretty easy to share. So I will put that in the chat. I forgot. Maybe you even put this in the landing page, Marines. Sorry if you did. But if you can also put the curriculum in the chat, Anne-Marie, that would be um, great because I can give you kind of an idea. Oh, sorry. Maybe I can give you a quick visual here. I know you shared it with me earlier, Anne-Marie. Don't scold me. Okay, there we go. I found it. So this is what I was referencing earlier, where every Tuesday of each month, we're coaching, regardless of where our families are in the process, we're coaching them up, right? And live experts, always taking Q&A, and then every other and you guys can kind of go through the senior year and juniors and underclassmen, right? And then office hours with our experts every other Monday, 7 Eastern time. They can write in earlier. Here's the questions I want you to ask this week. Come to them live. We have a couple live experts, a couple banging away in the Q&A. And let me make sure again, if you did not, for those that weren't here at the beginning, please talk to Anne-Marie if you don't partner with us already, and you can sign up, either grab a time off of her calendar here, or you can just write in here and we'll figure out a time. Yeah, so we have I told you we have a podcast now where we just get, again, kind of more into the weeds with this stuff. But beyond, again, kind of education, the big word that I am using with us, right, internally here with our team and with parents is we got to have our own accountability here, right? No matter what happens externally, federal direct student loan goes away, student loan rates go way up. Again, God forbid on both of those things. Certain scholarships go away. We can't control that, right? Right now, we can't control that. We have no, we're going to do what we can in terms of, trying to protect the folks that are negatively impacted here. But we have to have the attitude of like, I'm going to make sure, and there's no excuse now, right? Everybody has access to this. They have access to it for free. I'm going to make sure that I know my SAI, ideally, before I even go to tour campus. But I'm going to know exactly what that college is going to cost me, right? And then I'm going to figure out what my budget is, okay? And if it's zero, that's okay for tons of families. You all know their college budget is exactly zero. That's okay. We can still go find colleges, right? Leverage the technology that are going to be within our affordability profile. And then really understand what the 4-year net cost is going to be when we bake in inflation and siblings going out, variables like this. How much am I going to have to borrow, right? What's my first monthly payment going to be, at this college? What does that look like versus my expected take home pay if I'm have an idea about a major, right? And all this stuff is in here. So we can put ourselves in a position to have great outcomes regardless of what happens in any administration, right? So that's kind of how I'm coaching it to our audience. I'm saying we got to level up, right? Some of these things this already complicated, expensive system. Maybe some of these changes are going to get better. Probably in the short term, they're going to get harder. So we got to level up, and we can't just say, "Oh, college is expensive," and "Oh, this, that, and the other." What we can, but we have to take up accountability to have great outcomes. And I know you school counselors, you don't know what colleges are, or I don't think. Usually you're flying blind in terms of what schools are going to be, who's going to give the kids financial aid, who's going to give them scholarships, how much, right? And you're not looking at their tax returns and their bank statements outside of anecdotal information. You probably don't have a great idea of where that family is actually at financially, but we'll be able to tell them that, right? They can onboard themselves and get a good idea themselves. And for the seniors right now, right, for the seniors in college, they can upload their financial aid award letters, right? And we're going to translate them, but then we're going to tell you, did you get a good deal? Did Boston College give you what they said a family that has your financial profile should get? So we have to know the cost before we apply. We have to know how that fits within our budget, Oregon, even if we have one, and have a clear understanding of what the outcome is likely going to be. And I would say this year more than ever is when we have to be dialed in with our loan guidance, right? Because again, the plus loan, if it's an option, it's going to be harder to qualify for. A lot of families don't know that regardless of where they live, they could borrow through the state of Iowa or Massachusetts or Rhode Island, right? There's 3 states that are have comparable loan programs to the plus loan in the sense that they're guaranteed fixed rates, but the rates are a lot lower than the plus loan. But usually only if you live in those states, they hear them because they're not advertised nationally, right? So I share that just as an example to say, look, before you just go choose a loan, let's make sure you understand all of your options, the pros and cons of each, et cetera, if you have to borrow. Because again, I think this year more than ever, that's going to be really, really important piece. And again, for you guys, if you don't partner with us, please talk to us. Again, we are, this is what we do. This is what we care about. This is our passion. This is our obligation, right? Is to make sure that people are having successful outcomes here, right? To the extent that we can control, and we can control a lot. And you all, like you hear me say this every other week, we're the tip of the spear here, right? We're the tip of the spear. So, we got to tackle this on together. Okay. And again, even if you just want us to be a resource for you, we're here. We're your backstop. Okay. I actually have to jump to another kind of presentation here, but yeah, please continue to pay attention. We are all over this stuff, so we'll be sharing it out in pretty much real time as more intel comes in. And again, even especially how some of this stuff is packaged. I can't defend how it's packaged. I hate how it's packaged. Okay. But we got to be kind of the source of calm here. As people are freaking out, we got to say, hey, we can still control a ton of what's happening. We are still in control here. We are making decisions of where we decide to apply and where we decide to attend. Obviously, we can't decide where we get in. We can we can find out what these colleges are going to cost us before we can find out what are going to be the best loans for our family. These are all things in our control. We just got to get educated, right? And again, and that's our job. So, and please keep the questions coming, right? I really want to hear. We're really hoping to hear from you all, like what are parents and students worried about? What are you worried about? Because hopefully we can kind of dispel some of those worries, or at least kind of commiserate and say we hear you. We don't have, again, some of these things. Federal direct student loan may be going away. I don't have a silver lining there. Subsidized loan going away. I don't have a silver lining there. I just adamantly disagree with it. But again, when I do all the math here, it does lead to lower college prices, which I think we can universally get behind that. Okay. Um, all right, y'all. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. And again, if you didn't book time with Anne Marie, please do, and write into counselor@collegeaidpro.com, or write into that support form there. And yeah, we're motivated to help you guys, and more so your communities. Thanks, everybody.